Good morning. We'll call the City Council meeting for Wednesday, August 24th to order. Welcome, everybody. This is why we needed to expand the City Council chambers. It is a full house today, so welcome to City Hall. At this time, we will ask Reverend Boundary to lead us in an invocation, and then we will do Pledge of Allegiance.
Will you stand with me, please, and bow as we pray? Gracious, everlasting, eternal God, our Father, our Creator, our Maker, our Remaker, our everything, we thank you for this moment, this day. We consider it and know it's a blessing just to be alive. You saw fit, for whatever reason, to lengthen the threads of our lives to see this day. And our prayer is that we will make the best of it, redeeming the time. We thank you for the privilege of living in a country where we can express what we want without fear of retribution. We're thankful to live in a city that works. And we pray, dear God, that you'd guide this meeting, that you'd guide this council and this mayor and this citizenry as we discuss things that will impact and affect the future of Tyler for years to come. And now we claim everything in the name of your Son, Jesus, who makes prayer possible and makes it powerful. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have minutes from the July 27th, in fact, the July 27th and the August 10th City Council meetings.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Boundary, second by Sellers. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And at this time, we are going to, Heather, are you here?
Probably.
Oh, there you are. I'm sorry, I was looking, it's really crowded. I think what we'd like to do, we have most of the cards relating to 01, but we also have a lot of citizens here that we do zoning typically at the beginning of our meetings. We don't have, I don't think by the number of cards, we don't have much contesting in the zoning stuff. So let's go ahead and move through the zoning so the professionals and the citizens that were here for that can finish their business with us. And then we'll go straight into 01. I'll move that up on the agenda. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. This first item is a zone change from agricultural to R1A single family. To the east and south is zoned ag, and the property to the east is developed with single-family homes, and south is undeveloped. North and west are zoned R1A and are undeveloped as well. This request is consistent with the future land use guide, which calls this area single-family medium-low density. The applicant has stated that they intend to develop homes that would be marketed around $2,100 per month as rental living for young professionals. A number of nearby property owners have expressed concerns with rental property and that the homes might be occupied by students. Neighbors also expressed concerns with poor property maintenance associated with rental homes. Staff notes that the Unified Development Code cannot stipulate through zoning that a property be owner occupied. However, environmental concerns such as noise and vehicles parking on unimproved surfaces, like in the front yards, on the grass, can be enforced by the city. That is currently under the city's jurisdiction and enforced by code enforcement. Other considerations relating to property maintenance issues that are not currently covered by our ordinances could be enforced through a property maintenance code should the city at a future date consider that. Code enforcement has stated that they receive about 5 complaints a year about too many people living in a house, which usually results from excessive amounts of cars parked on the property. and frequently coming and going of those cars. Staff recommends approval of the request to change the zoning from agricultural to R1A, single-family residential, and the Planning and Zoning Commission by 7-0 vote also recommends approval of this request.
Questions of Heather?
Heather, was there anything done regarding the parking requirements on this? Limiting the parking of vehicles?
I can't remember if Bob Breedlove,
Bob seems like he's about ready.
Yeah,
to-
Bob,
he
we
can
do have a
answer
card.
that through his
We do
restrictions.
have a card for Bob. Any more questions from Heather before we go straight to Bob? Okay, Bob, state your name and,
Bob Breedlove with Brandon Corporation, 1321 South Broadway. Yes, we do limit the number of vehicles to 2.
Okay.
Require them to use the garage, not just to store stuff in the garage. And that's sort of the way we try to deter the students, is the rents are pretty high, and we limit the number of vehicles they can have.
Okay. That's the question I have.
any other questions? You got a question? No. Motion?
I move to approve Z1.
Second.
Motion by Watley, second by Nix. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. On to Z2.
This is a request to rezone from C1 light commercial to C2 general
And,
commercial.
and I do want to say one other thing real quick. For y'all that are not here all the time, the same thing that you see on your screen, we have computers that are showing it to us. So sometimes when we're looking down, we're actually paying attention. But it's not that we're looking at our phones or anything, so thank you. Go ahead.
This is a zone change request in order to allow for storage of outdoor materials and products by a new tenant for underground utility material company. All adjacent properties are located in Zone 2 of the ETJ. To the north, east, and west are single-family homes. To the south is the historic park known as Camp Ford. And the property initially was annexed in August of 2011 with a plan to ultimately construct an educational museum. The reason for annexation was to receive adequate fire protection. Most recent use was an antique mall, and the future land use guide would be amending from a private recreation and open space to general commercial. The Tyler First Comprehensive Plan identifies this area as appropriate for manufacturing and warehouse uses. And as you can see on the map, the red circle, that's the general location of this property. Of the 16 notices mailed, 1 was returned in favor, 0 in opposition, and the Planning and Zoning Commission by 7-0 vote recommends approval of this request.
Questions of Heather?
I move to approve Z2.
Motion by Sellers,
Second.
second by Warren. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We move to C3.
This is a zone change to allow for the development of single-family homes. They are asking to rezone from agricultural to R1A. To the north is Zone PCD Planned Commercial District and is currently undeveloped. To the east and south is agricultural developed with single-family homes. To the west is zoned R1B Single Family and is developed with single-family homes as well. This is consistent with the future land use guide, which identifies this area as single-family, medium-low density. The applicant plans to develop single-family homes on lots less than 1 acre, which is the minimum for an agricultural lot, and to be consistent with the surrounding properties. There was some original opposition to this request as the neighbors were wanting the original street layout to continue, and I believe we have an example of that layout. The applicant has stated that their intention is to follow through with the original plan and layout as you see here, and to construct Ashley Creek Lane and Fair Lane as cul-de-sacs with no vehicular access to Cherry Hill Drive. Of the 23 notices mailed, 1 was returned in favor, 8 in opposition at a 10.55% protest. The Planning and Zoning Commission by 7-0 vote recommends approval.
And I do have one card here from Ray Boudreau for questions if necessary. Are there any questions of Mr. Boudreau? Any questions of Heather?
I would like to say that this is in my district, and we had a neighborhood meeting, and Heather was there along with a couple of other people from Planning and Zoning, and I want to thank Ray and Bob Breedlove they did listen to the neighbors and they did change the street plan. And since the city manager lives in this neighborhood, I thought that was a really good idea. But thank you very much, Ray and Bob. And I move that we approve Z3.
I'll second.
Motion by Sellers, second by Boudry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Heather, Z4.
This is a special use renewal permit request to allow for continued operation of a 48-bed substance abuse treatment facility with overnight stay for a 5-year period. The facility was approved in 2015 for a 1-year special use permit. After opening in September of 2015, there was no noticeable increase in the number of severity of police calls in the general vicinity. The applicant has developed special provisions and conditions for the operation of this facility. The only change from the original conditions is the ability to utilize a treatment known as Suboxone, which it was previously prohibited along with methadone. They are not asking for methadone treatment at this time, and it is prohibited in their list of conditions. Of the 8 notices mailed, 0 returned in favor or in opposition to this request, and the Planning and Zoning Commission by 7-0 vote recommends approval of the extension of this special use permit for a 5-year renewal.
Heather, I have a question.
Okay, we do have Mr. Hall, who is the
Okay.
speaker. Who
This
wants to
thing
speak?
was contested quite a bit when we first did it, and there was a lot of concerns. Have any of those concerns become reality?
No.
Any issues, any episodes out there?
We haven't heard any issues, and any of the former protesters, nobody has protested this item, so it seems to be working very well in the neighborhood.
As I expected. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to address that also, just to say that's in my district, and we did have a lot of concerns early on, but I can say Mr. Bailey's here, and I recall him saying to me that you won't know we are there after 6 months, and that's a true statement. This has been a very good neighbor for the neighborhood. It's a very good business client, and I can also say their beds are full, they've kept their commitment. If you drive down Gentry Parkway, if you don't know that they're located on the south side of the road, you won't know they're there. It's been a good fit for the community, helping a lot of people in the East Texas area. So I'd just like to move that we accept Z4.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Now, I do have a card from Mr. Hall. Would you
Okay.
like to speak today? You're welcome to.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the mayor and the city council for their support this last year in our beginning operations. Mr. Bailey did present at the Planning and Zoning Committee, and I just wanted to reiterate his appreciation for the support of the city of Tyler. We have integrated very well, we believe. We have a dynamic advisory board made up of 19 members representing all aspects of the community, and we've served close to 500 clients the first year.
Yeah, good.
So thank you for your support, and we can hope to have continued success.
Is this facility meeting your expectations of what y'all originally planned for it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we have great neighbors. We haven't had any issues with anything that we're,
I haven't heard of one.
no, thank
No,
you.
And I
those
will hear.
those that protested originally were at the grand opening eating cake.
That's very good.
Just one more question, Mr. Hall. Mr. Carl, what about your beds? Are all your beds full now, or are you at full capacity?
Our occupancy is about, Hollis, what's our occupancy? About 90%? Oh, yeah. About 90%.
Great.
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Great.
I would like to say I applaud what you guys do. I took a tour a while back, and I was extremely impressed with the whole facility. You guys are doing a good job.
And our facility director is here, Mr. Hollis Hill, and our outpatient manager is also here, Mr. Derek Lott. So.
Great.
they'll be
Thank you all very
Thank
much
you.
for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe, Whatley, did you make the motion? Who made the motion?
I made the motion.
Ed,
Ed Moore made
seconded
the,
it.
okay, Ed Moore made a motion.
I second.
Whatley had a second. Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Hall. Now on to Z5.
This request is a zone change from M1 light industrial to R1A single family. This is to allow for the development of a single family home. To the north, south, and east are zoned M1 light industrial and are undeveloped. To the west is zoned R1A, and undeveloped, and a mixture of undeveloped and developed with single-family homes. The future land use guide would need to be amended to mixed-use center, or from mixed-use center to single-family medium-low density. Of the 9 notices mailed, 0 returned in favor or in opposition to this case, and the Planning and Zoning Commission by 7-0 vote recommends approval.
Move to approve.
Okay. Motion by Bowdry, second by Warren. No cards, so all in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. On to Z6.
This is a request from C1 Light Commercial to R1B Single Family to allow for the construction of single-family homes. To the north and west is Zone C1 Light Commercial and is developed with single-family homes under our former pyramid zoning. And to the east and south are zoned R1B, and the property to the east is undeveloped, while the property to the south is developed with a single-family home. To the west is zoned R1A and is a pasture for cattle. This is consistent with the future land use guide, as it is called out as single-family and single-family attached. And this is also consistent with the Tyler First Comprehensive Plan to add 3,000 more households in North Tyler and in the downtown area in the next 20 years. Of the 17 notices mailed, 0 returned in favor or in opposition to this request, and the Planning and Zoning Commission by 7-0 vote recommends approval.
It looks like, go back to the aerial, just to the east of that. I think there's a new house that just got built there, right? I was out there yesterday.
I think so. Did y'all know any?
So that could be a recent change that wasn't captured on our.
Yeah, good. Well, no, I mean, that's great, though. I mean, because that's what our goal is, so I'm glad that these are getting divided to build some new rooftops over there on Queen. I think that's good.
Queen and Palace.
Yeah, yeah. So, motion?
I move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Boundary, second by Moore. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Great, thank you. Now we're on to Z7.
This is a request to rezone from agricultural to institutional to allow for the development of an elementary and high school. To the north is zoned multifamily and is undeveloped with power lines running through the entire width, which is Encore. To the south is agricultural, also undeveloped. To the east is C2 general commercial, undeveloped and developed with a hydraulic repair business. There is some development activity in this area, so we are seeing some hospital and other institutional uses being developed currently along this corridor. The future land use guide would need to be amended from agricultural to institutional use, and this is for an elementary school and gymnasium are to be constructed as the first phase to open for the fall of 2017. And the high school is the second phase to be opened in the fall semester of 2018. Of the 7 notices mailed, 0 were returned in favor or in opposition, and the Planning and Zoning Commission by 7-0 vote recommends approval.
Heather, who is this? Is this a
Well, he's
already
here today, so
existing?
you go ahead and.
It's
ask
a
that.
Responsive Education Solutions.
And we do have a representative from that
I'd like to-
organization. Any other questions of Heather before we go to Mr. Wright? Okay, Mr. Wright, welcome to come up. State your name and address for the record, please.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. My name is Terry Wright, with Wright Group Architects, Carrollton, Texas, 1430 South Broadway. The school that is listed was Responsive Education Solutions. They are a charter school company, I guess, lack of better words. It's a public school. The funds that they work from are state funds, not the local funds. So they don't impact the local ISD from taking the local funds that are already set aside for that public school. They do have 2 charter schools that are already in Tyler area. One is a premier high school, and they have one that's a Vista Academy. The one that they would be relocating is the Vista Academy. They are growing there, and the Vista Academy, I know they pack out and have stacking issues and stuff like this. This would definitely relieve those issues and stuff like that for that. Since they don't have a busing system, parents are responsible to get their kids to the school and into it. And it's an open enrollment, so kids can come from anywhere. I mean, if they want to drive up from Houston here daily, they could, since it's an open enrollment, state funding only. But it is a charter school, it's a public school, so it is free to any of the kids that do enroll into it with the parents. And if you have any other questions.
Where's Premier School located? Where's Premier School?
I'm not sure.
It's on Glenwood.
That's the one, okay, I know that
Yeah.
is, okay.
And I know that one,
That's not
I don't
part
know
of it.
what they're doing with that one. That one will probably stay as Premier High School because that reaches a different group of kids that they work with independently onto it versus this school, which will be designed for around 800 kids, and it will eventually be K through 12. So it's all on one campus type scenario, more your smaller school system. Is what this one will be
What is
developing.
the initial building, or what are they initially constructing there?
The first building will be the elementary school and the gymnasium component to this. They're already filling up to it, and this will allow them to get to the 8th grade
Okay.
in the first building, so it'll be K through 8 through the first building. Then the high school building that would come online, so the kids that would be going into 8th grade next fall, they would be able to continue on to the same campus they're in and to the same school, and they would then be able to continue into the high school building.
Size, general size of the structure?
We're in the 30,000 square foot range for the K through 8.
Wow.
The gym is about 12,000 square feet. They're a little bit larger because it has some other weight rooms, some training rooms to it, a little bit area for seating and stuff because they will use that gym both for the elementary school, middle school, and high school.
Yeah.
Is there financing state-backed, or is it one of those deals that's gonna have to come before us for approval?
No, I know they've been in business long enough. They have, I think, 80-some campuses in Texas. Don't hold me to it. I could be lying to you onto that part. They're also in some other states into it, but their main corporation is in Texas, off of Louisville onto it. But they do, since it is a public school, I know they have certain bond packages that back
Right,
their
that's what I
financing
meant.
by the state, and the TEA still is in their business just like a public school. They have to meet all of the testing, the whole 9 yards, and down to the financing, approving it to the TEA before they can get a charter to do this type of
Yeah,
project.
and the answer is yes to that
Okay.
question, but
It's just gonna be another one of those bonds we have to.
well, what happened
No.
is it was done administratively.
Their bonds are tied, if they do a bond, it's at a state level, not a city level.
Right, but it was a document that, we made sure that the taxpayers were
Just one,
completely,
right.
yes,
Another one of those
absolutely.
We're aware of it documents, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
That we're aware, we have no,
That was my question.
No, I know a lot of their funding and stuff, till they get the kids inside of a school, they don't receive a lot of their funding and certain paychecks.
Yeah,
They
but
can
it
show
was-
the romance
it's-
of the kids, so they do this financing backing on their own. They've
Yeah.
been, and that's kind of what they've done in this area, is
Right.
built their clientele, so to speak, as a
But-
business model before they go out and build something.
but there's
new.
no liability to our taxpayers
No,
in
no.
any form or fashion.
No.
Period, on that, right. That's a private venture that they
Yes.
are doing. Any other questions for Mr. Wright?
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion by Watley. Thank you, Mr. Wright. Second by Nix. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Heather, thank you. Is that all of them? That's it.
All right.
Right, we're gonna go on to 01, then we're gonna come back. Peter, you're gonna do the presentation?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mayor and Council. This morning, we would like to propose transportation for hire ordinance. The existing taxi ordinance we have, it was amended in November 2014 to allow for limousines and black car services. Up until this point, our existing ordinance will only regulate taxis, limousines, and as technology has changed, and we feel like that it's time for us to update these amendments. The information technology has become such an integral part of our daily commute in many cities and in our nation, and especially in Texas now. And these companies are called transportation network companies, or TNCs. Example of those are like Uber and Lyft and others. Our proposed ordinance will allow all forms, that means taxis, limousine, shuttle car services, and TNCs, to operate within our city, And this will give a level playing field to let the consumers to have their free choice and let the consumers and the riders to, they can choose. And so we feel like that this ordinance would be appropriate for that. At this time, we know of at least, I think that's 11, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I think there's 14 cities that have ordinances that allow TNC to operate in the city. There might be a few other cities that they have ordinances, and these TNC might not be working in those cities, but these are the known ones that we know of. Next slide, please. And so, in a nutshell, what are we changing? So, and what remains the same? One of the most important thing is that everybody knows is the background check of the drivers. Currently, our ordinance and our proposed ordinance remains the same. The background check for the drivers are done by third party. When I say a third party, it's a nationally accredited company that would do background checks. And so that has not changed, and that will not change. The insurance, we want to make sure that the state regulation for insurance of the different forms of the transportation for a hire company will be regulated by the state. So the city will not have additional burdens added to these companies. So whatever the state regulates requires the insurance for different forms of vehicle for hire service, and we'll let the state decide that. So if it should change at the state level, these companies will have to conform to that. At this time, we feel like the city don't want to impose additional requirements on that. And the annual fee of $250 remains the same, and that is per year. Our current permit is good for up to 3 years, and they will be renewable, and that has not changed. So up until now, a company such as a taxi company to pay $250, and we're proposing that the fee remains the same. So what are the major changes? The major changes, we no longer really will have a distinction to differentiate the different companies, so we all want to treat them all the same. So, like I said, they will be competing on equal basis. And individual drivers, up until now, the city issues a permit for the drivers, in addition to the company that issued an ID card for their drivers. We no longer will require a city-issue permit, but we do require each entity, each company to issue their company ID for their drivers. And the rates for taxis has been regulated by city, so any changes, the taxi company at this will have to come before you for a rate change. We lifted that, so any of these companies could set their own rate, and it will be highly competitive and let the consumers decide and what they are willing to pay. So that, in a nutshell, those are the changes we have. And I'd be glad to, or I'll try to answer your questions.
We have quite a few cards. Would y'all rather ask questions after we hear the comments from the public, or do you have questions for Peter at this time? It's whatever you
Is
prefer.
there an Uber guy here that's going to speak?
Is there anyone here from,
There's somebody.
is there
Okay.
someone from Uber here?
Yes, and is your name Peter Schultz? No. What is your name?
Trevor Tennyson.
Okay. Do you have a card filled out?
Yes, sir.
Yes, he sure does. Would y'all like to hear from an Uber representative and Jamal first?
I just had
or
one
would
question
you-
for Peter from
Yes, sir.
the changes that you mentioned here. It looks like, and I know this was our intent, we were putting everybody on a level playing field, not
Yes, sir.
giving one an advantage over the other at this
Yes, sir.
point. Okay.
That's correct. We try to create this level playing field and let the consumers choose.
Okay.
Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll open it up to the public for comments. At this time, we will hold two cards to the very end, and that will be Uber and Mr. Mohair, who is a cab company. We'll hold those to the very end so we can have a little discussion and maybe ask you all some questions. But at this time, we have several cards from the public that would like to speak. So what I'd prefer is doing the 3-minute limit, if you don't mind, since there's several people speaking. In fact, there is, most are for, there is one card against. So I'll take them in the order that I received them. And so what we'll do is we'll call you up, and then you come up and just state your name and address for the record, please. And then you have 3 minutes. So we'll start now with Kelly Michaels. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Kelly Michaels, and my address is 2013 Holly Creek Drive in Tyler. And I'm here in support of bringing Uber to Tyler. So first of all, can I ask everybody in the room that is in support of Uber to please stand up? Thank you. My friend Ginger Walker and I were talking one day about how much we wish Tyler had more rideshare options. And we decided to create a petition to bring Uber to Tyler. In 2 weeks, with just a little effort, we had over 200 signatures. Tyler is a city with 3 thriving college campuses, and we need more than one drive-share option. With all of the social events that Tyler offers, we need a quick, safe, clean, and affordable option for a safe ride home. My family has used Uber all over the country, and we even used Uber in London this summer instead of using their cabs. When you order an Uber, you see the driver's location on the app, and you know exactly how long it will be until they arrive. I have never waited longer than 8 minutes for an Uber. You don't tip with Uber, and when you get out of the car, you don't have to pay. It's all processed through the app. There's no cash that you have to pull out. Uber even offers a fair share if you share a ride with a friend, so you split the ride. And when your children, when my daughter at UT used Uber, she could share her ride with me, and I could see and watch when she arrived where she was going. I have always felt safe in an Uber. Uber does a national background check on all their drivers. They use the same background check system that FedEx, UPS, and daycare agencies use. It's the same background check that would be used if I or you were going to meet the president. Some of the Uber drivers that we've had have been software engineers, heads of human resources, and even college students who all want to make extra money. And you also have the opportunity to rate your Uber driver, so the incentive is to provide good service in a nice, clean car. Uber is a safe, quick, and affordable option that could bring new jobs to our city. Please bring Uber to Tyler. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Michaels. The next card I have is Ginger Walker.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Ginger Walker. I live at 2014 Pinehurst, Tyler, Texas. And as you just heard, Kelly and I started this petition approximately 2 or 3 months ago in support of Uber. I wanted to, if you'll quickly let me tell you my personal story, why this is so important to me. Try not to cry. My son started having seizures approximately 2.5 years ago. Throughout these years, depending on his frequency of the seizures, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Take your time.
There are many, many months where he was unable to drive a car. For a teenage boy, this was extremely hard. He had to rely on me or his friends to have him drive places, specifically to and from school. He hated this, and he was embarrassed at having his mother have to drop him off to all of his different functions he had to attend to. Sorry, this is really hard. As any of us would, he became tired of asking his friends for transportation to and from all the different functions he had to attend. He would often opt out of functions because he did not want to ask for transportation, and he just got tired of asking all the time. All this time I kept thinking, I'd been using Uber throughout wherever we travel. And the whole time I kept thinking, I wish we had Uber here. He always has his cell phone, like most kids his age, have the app. Uber driver would be there within 5 to 10 minutes, and he wouldn't have that embarrassment factor of having to call a taxi and waiting. The straw that broke the camel's back for me was one day he got out of school early, and he could not find a ride home. He didn't want to call and tell me because he knew I had an appointment. So he decided to walk from All Saints Episcopal School to Holly Tree along Loop 323 in the cold winter rain. He got home, he was wet, he was tired, and he was freezing. It was that day that made me desperate to get Uber here in Tyler. Again, how wonderful would it have been for him to have felt independent and been able to have a timely and affordable ride. I want Uber here for my son, but I also want him for other people. I have a master's in healthcare administration, and I'm very well aware of all the disabled people and people who have medical issues and how this would help them as well. And secondly, I think I can get through this part. The more obvious reason I want Uber here in Tyler is to help make our streets safer. I firmly believe that people who are drinking here in Tyler will do the responsible thing and use Uber instead of driving under the influence, if they can be picked up in a timely and affordable manner. There are numerous studies that have shown Uber has significantly lowered the rate of DUIs and fatal vehicle crashes. Mothers Against Drunk Driving, both nationally and locally.
Ginger, hold on just one second. Let's give Ms. Walker another 45 seconds for extra crying time.
Well, that could be actually a while. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm like,
That's
whoa.
fine.
Whoa.
You're welcome. That's fine. Take your time.
I'm actually almost done, so.
Okay.
There are numerous studies that have shown that, I think I just said this, Uber has significantly lowered the rate of DUIs and fatal vehicle crashes. Mothers Against Drunk Driving, nationally and locally, support ride-sharing platforms like Uber and Lyft. I believe the local office and national office sent every city council member a letter in support of Uber. We just need to give the people the opportunity to not drink and drive, and I know with 100% certainty that my friends and I would use this resource. So I'd just like to urge the city council to approve the new city ordinance and give people independence and also make our streets safer.
Thank you very much.
So thank you. I apologize for the breakdown.
That's okay. That's fine. We have a card now from Ms. Bain. Would you come up in 3 minutes and state your name and address, please?
Good morning, Mayor and Council. My name is Martha Bain, and my address is 5819 Covey Lane here in Tyler. I'm an active woman who volunteers for many charity organizations here in Tyler, as well as the parent and athletic organization at my son's school, All Saints Episcopal School. I also have a migraine and seizure disorder, which from time to time prevents me from driving, often for 3 months at a time, which, as you can imagine, with young children means that I have to find rides for them to and from school or to and from their various activities. It also means that I'm limited in getting to the various meetings that I have to attend. There are a few things more humbling than having your driver's license restricted as an adult. It means you have to rely on the kindness of your friends and your family to get you from point A to point B. I'm not a proud woman or a wealthy woman. I have tried to ride public transportation. I have taken the cab service, often without success. It creates a huge inconvenience. I tried that cab company. Doesn't work. I've used Uber in a number of large cities, from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C., to Houston, to San Antonio. And I've never had an incident, and I've never been fearful of using it. While my examples are personal, I speak for many people with limitations, for health reasons, and friends who seek to be responsible and never drink and drive. My husband and I are trying to teach our sons that you never, ever get behind the wheel of a car while having had a drink. Recently, while on a date, we waited for over 45 minutes for a cab to come and pick us up, which we had pre-ordered when we arrived at the restaurant. The cab never came, and so ultimately we had to call for a friend to come and get us. A free market economy brings with it the opportunity for choice, and all that we are asking for is the courtesy of that choice. Today, I am hoping that you will grant us that opportunity and give us the right to decide. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a card from Troy Ellison. State your name and address, please.
I'm Troy Ellison. We live out on Runs Quarter Road, 14714, FM 2964, and our business is at 2087 Brandon, right off of Biloxi, inside the city. I'm retired military, moved back home a year and a half ago. I was the squadron representative for safety. I was a safety rep of my squadron as a non-commissioned officer in Randolph. It was awesome. Mom and dad's business, limousine company. We're trying to get away from being a wedding company, and we're trying to be a livery company. Great investment. We have a Navigator SUV. We've got a couple of 7 Series BMWs. I'm here to seek compliance. I want to be as legal as possible, regardless of what happens. The reason that I am against Uber, because of $1 million liability insurance per vehicle, period. That's it. I have to carry that on all my vehicles. The reason why is because of safety, and I new to this business. I went to the limousine convention hosted by the Limousine Chauffeur Transportation out at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas back in March. And I go out there trying to learn this business, and there are a bunch of apps that they have for chauffeur transportation, such as Black Lane, Ground Link, iCars, Next Taxi, Limo Anywhere. There's a lot of them out there, but Uber's not allowed in the building. And I wondered why. It all has to do with safety of the people. Uber is not in Austin for a reason. And it's a company. There are many other companies that operate legally that do the same thing that Uber does, but they do it with insurance, background check, and drug testing for drivers. So I want to be in compliance. I put against because of the way Uber has operated. That's really kind of not mentioned. But when the industry standard of LCT and the National Limousine Association does not approve of Uber, it kind of made me think a little bit that I needed to be here this morning. I would rather all of our citizens get home safely and not have other issues of 50 cars in Dallas coming down here on Friday night so they can clean up on a quick buck and head back to Dallas Sunday morning. And that's really one of the reasons I want to do that. So I will do whatever you want me to do to be in compliance, and we'll keep operating. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ellison. We have a card from James Wynn. Excuse me. State your name and address, please.
James Wynn, 511 West 6th Street here in Tyler. And I'm here in favor of Uber coming to Tyler. If this ordinance is passed, it will give those who qualify under the guidelines, as Mr. Ng outlined, for the city of Tyler, the ability to earn extra income. In other cities where I've used Uber, I've talked to drivers, they've been teachers who, you know, frankly, our teachers aren't paid very well, ability to earn extra income. My wife was telling me one of her stories about an Uber driver. It was a stay-at-home mom whose daughter wanted to take swim lessons. She drove once a week to earn the money to pay for those lessons. Our residents of Tyler are asking for this. That's why we're here today. Our guests that come to Tyler have asked me about the availability of rideshare. We don't have it. They've tried to use the taxi service here, and Jamal through the years has done a great job, but our city has grown so much. There's so much more activity that goes on in Tyler that there are alternatives that are needed to get guests and visitors and ourselves to and from activities in a safe manner. No one wants to go out and have a drink and then have to drive home. It's not safe, it's not wise, it's not smart. I've talked to too many people that say they don't travel to downtown Tyler, to Liberty Hall, to the restaurants, to the bars down there, because they don't want to drive back home. This will give them that opportunity. They've tried to use what is here, and I think they're overwhelmed by the number of people in Tyler that may be calling for taxi services. So I'm here to support Uber and ask you all to vote in favor of it to help keep our streets safe. Thank you.
The next card I have is Jack Walker.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. My name's Jack Walker, address 3509 Pat Lane here in Tyler. I'm addressing you here today for a couple of reasons. One is, having grown up here and been in business here for 25 years, I'm always impressed and have been impressed since I moved back to Tyler at the forward-thinking nature of this council. This council has always been forward-thinking, progressive expansion, and very contemplative in what we do. Thus, the Tyler First Comprehensive Plan. It's been mentioned 8 times here today, and I would draw your attention to that plan and the vision statement in that plan. The vision statement states that Tyler will be nationally known for its commitment to our robust and business environment, our quality medical community, and our educational institutions. But it goes on to say that we will be committed to a superb transportation system led by an efficient, forward-thinking city government. Which brings us to ride sharing, and quite frankly, I'm not here saying Uber. What I'm here saying is we need ride sharing. We need the order to be deregulated so that we can open up to a free market economy. The market will decide, and let the market decide. This is, as Councilman Watley stated, this is to level the playing field and to open it up. Ride sharing is not really the wave of the future, it's the wave of the now. And I bet if I took the cell phones from each council member there, I could find some sort of ride sharing account on each phone, because we've all used it when we travel. Why would we deny that here when we are trying to grow this community? We are trying to be progressive. We are a leader. Earlier, there was the order put up by Mr. Ng showing the cities that have ordinances. We're far and away above all those. I know that you, as council members and the mayors, have gone to those cities and given speeches on what we do here and how we do it right. It is the way of the now. We need to deregulate it. The citizens want it. It's your obligation to allow the market to decide. So I'm asking you to vote in favor of this, level the playing field, and allow the market to decide itself. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a card from Ginger Saunders. Looks like she's pretty far in the bag, so it'll be a second. Here she comes.
Hi, my name's Ginger Saunders. I'm at 1506 South Chilton here in Tyler, Texas, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you, Mayor and council people, and thank you for letting me follow Jack Walker and his lovely, well thought out and intelligent speech. But I have just a small little piece I wanted to say about what I think about ride sharing and our experience in different cities here in the United States. I think that what we've enjoyed the most is visiting with these drivers and finding out their personal stories. I love to talk to a cab driver or Uber driver or a Lyft driver and just kind of say, how'd you get here and why are you doing this? And one of the most compelling stories that we heard is my husband and I enjoy New Orleans a lot. And we go every year, and we had a driver, and he seemed very open to discussion. And I said, how did you end up driving for Uber? It happened to be an Uber driver. And he said, well, my wife and I are both from New Orleans, and we've lived here our entire life. And we were displaced by Katrina, like many people were, and we came back. My wife had a good job. She worked for a private school district there. And I had gone to lunch with some of my Army buddies, and they were telling me that they were on a trip, and they were doing this in other cities, Chicago and other areas. And they said, you really need to do this. This is going to give you some financial freedom, and it's going to give you the opportunity to let your kids continue in the school district they're in, and, you know, to be able to create a future for your kids. And so he came home and he bought a small car and he started driving Uber. And within a year, he was able to upgrade his car. He was able to increase his financial, you know, contribution to his family. He had currently 2 children, and both were in amazing colleges on the East Coast and West Coast, and 2 children in private school in New Orleans that both they were all fabulous athletes, and he had great stories about his children. But he said he was able to self-promote himself in a country that allowed him to get a job and make money in a flexible position so that he was able to attend his children's sporting events, see them graduate from high school and go on to college. He was currently in a black suburban and was able to increase his potential earning all the way up to making as much money as he wanted to based on the number of hours he was able to do so. And I brought just a small article that was out of the New York Times, where a economist at Princeton named Alan Kruger got information from Uber, and he did his own report. And he said that Uber drivers worked fewer hours and earned more per hour than traditional taxi cab drivers, even when you account for their expenses. And that this key perk to Uber driving was its flexibility. So I hope that you guys will listen to all of our 4 comments and recognize that this is something that not only the citizens you need, but to offer that employment opportunity to people who might not have an employment opportunity that would be equal to what this would offer to their families.
Great.
So,
thank you very much. We have one last card from Peter Schultz.
Good morning. My name is Peter Schultz. I live at 6901 Holly Tree Circle. I just was informed about this issue yesterday, and some of my comments will be redundant after everyone else, but anyways, I'd like to share them. And when I use the word Uber, that's really a proxy for any ride-sharing service because they operate similarly. So I'm a Uber user. My wife, my 6 adult children, and I have and continue to benefit from using Uber in large and small cities across the U.S. and overseas in such places as Paris, Singapore, and even in the Middle East. I invariably ask Uber drivers about their experience and consistently end up hearing about people who are motivated and energized to own their own business, be their own bosses, have control of their schedules, and deliver a quality and reliable service that is valued by their customers. I'm always grateful for the peace of mind Uber provides as regards my family members, especially my adult daughters. Whether in college or now in life, it's always been good to know that they can get a safe and reliable ride no matter where they are or what time of day it might be. Obviously, as already mentioned, a critical issue is the public safety benefit by keeping drunken drivers off the road, and the numerous studies that have been published showing the material difference that it makes, as well as the fact that it gives the ability for individuals to make choices in their dining and spending based on being responsible with their driving. And as already mentioned, Uber presents an affordable alternative for the disabled, the elderly, and those who are not otherwise able to drive. I know that I have a foot surgery coming up, and I would be glad to avail myself of Uber because I know I will not be behind the wheel, although some say I have a heavy foot, it'll be too heavy to drive with. And as already mentioned, Uber presents unparalleled economic opportunity for its drivers and is a powerful generator of jobs. As I speak to Uber drivers, I find a wide spectrum of people. They're proud to have their own business, whether part or full-time. I find individuals who are fully employed and taking the opportunity to earn a little extra money. I find hardworking students who are earning much needed income as they strive towards a degree. I find people who have driven taxi and are happy for the change from the inflexible schedules and lower pay. I find parents who are able to build their work schedule around their children and have a better family life. I find people from minority communities who would have never dreamed that they'd be managing their own business and be self-employed. I find single mothers. I find people who've recently lost a job, but not the dignity of work and earning a living. I find retirees who appreciate earning some income while being able to interact with people. Again, there are numerous studies that show the economic impact. And the whole issue of ride sharing stands out as an issue of free enterprise and economic independence versus traditional interests in reducing both choice and opportunities for customers and owner-drivers alike. In every venue where ride sharing is opposed, it is usually from a taxi monopoly or consortium that's afraid of competition, but well-run taxi companies that provide good service can and do continue to operate profitably and well alongside ride-sharing services. So we have to ask ourselves, do we want increased economic opportunity and growth for our citizens and businesses? Do we want greater opportunities for students, retirees, minority communities, the recently unemployed, and most of all, the hardworking people who want to have their own well-run professional businesses? Do we want to...
Thank you.
Thank you.
But you did good. So you wrote that speech, and I wanted to make sure you had a little bit extra
right.
time. So
Well,
thank you very much for coming.
Everybody else has already said it, so
Yeah, good. Thank you. Now we have a card from Mr. Mohair.
Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
Gentlemen of the council, for the record, my name is Jamal Mohair, 1190 County Road 3504. I've had the pleasure of serving this community since 1988. And also, for the record, I'd like to state that the speakers are required to fill out one of these cards before being called. I would like for the record to show that the card I've completed is marked for and against this proposition.
Yes, it is.
Well, thank you. You know, 3 minutes is a pretty short time, but I'll try to do my best to shine some light. The words that have dominated this discussion and topic for some time now has been, we want even playing field. We want market-driven transportation sector. We want free enterprise. Guess what? That is exactly what I want. That is why the card is marked for. I'm going to be looking down, Mayor, but so I can pay attention.
That's fine. Sure.
No private sector in the right mind would ever advocate for more government regulation, and I'm not about to start. At the same time, however, private sector will always take issue with free enterprise, and even playing field or market-driven concepts are only applied to selected group and not every participant. And then why the speaker card is marked against? Because in the recent past, this is the second time that the transportation ordinance has been changed. Both times, the changes to the transportation ordinance appear to be made to accommodate a vendor. My company is the only company that complied with those changes. All other vendors ignored it, and the company that requested the changes no longer exists. During both events, public was never given a chance to review, comment, share how these changes would adversely affect them. There is a great argument here, but there is somebody on the other side that is adversely affected that we have not heard from. Last time I was here, we had a petition of 1,500 people, a couple hundred people actually arrived here. That didn't seem to phase anything, but today we may be different. For example, I think we would want to know why a company refuses to accept cash, but their drivers often do, and encourage the unsuspecting passengers to pay cash. Why should that matter to you? How will it affect? Who will it affect? What does it mean to other motorists in town? How does that create danger on the road, disparity and discriminatory business climate? All of this simply because the method of payment was selected that is not acceptable by the company. Their insurance is now void because you paid cash. You're not covered, nor am I that's sitting in front of that car that's about to get rear-ended by an Uber driver because he took cash. We need to pay attention to those small details, because the devil is in the detail that we have not discussed. Had we been allowed to discuss these at the committee level, maybe we would have come up to you with a different ordinance. With the taxi cab company,
Hey,
everyone's
Jamal,
insured.
I'll give you some more time. How many points do you have?
Well, I have one page left.
One page left?
I'll read it.
Okay, let's go.
In fact, since April, NDMJ has paid over, the taxi cab company, everyone is served regardless of their insurance or regardless of their ability to pay. In fact, since April of this year, NDMJ has paid over $120,000 of its own resources to provide transportation to those less fortunate while the government agencies contemplate a solution. Finally, I have always made a point of offering transportation services to those in need regardless of their ability to pay. It has been a long-standing tradition for the taxi cab company to offer services during celebratory holidays, cattle bearing, rose festivals at no cost. The new proposed company views those events as an opportunity to charge more and refer to it as surcharge pricing. Surcharge pricing is a polite way for consumer gouging. It is my privilege and community responsibility to remain responsive to community needs and be on the top of the technology. You probably didn't know that we took part in a statewide competition. We don't mind competition, and we were awarded the highest level of funding. We were showcased as the best practices. Your taxi cab company out of Tyler, Texas, was showcased at a national level by the Texas Department of Transportation as the best practices. We've been asked by Texas Transportation Institute from Texas A&M to offer input for innovative public transportation financing needs from Tyler, Texas, a little old cab company. We offered lecture to the graduate students and undergrad students at Mays School of Business for innovative and entrepreneurship. We have our own app at a local level. And when you use our app, you have access to all the amenities that were previously mentioned. You get to see the vehicle. But using our app, 20% of your money will not go to San Francisco, will stay here. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have, but I have a question for you. How does relinquishing criminal background check, compromised insurance, and letting private sector do its own criminal background check rather than a law enforcement agency that have in the past, how does that promote free enterprise? That's what we want, free enterprise.
Is that a question for me?
That's a question for
Okay,
you.
good. Let me.
But I'll be happy to answer any questions you might
Sure.
have.
Let me ask you a question. What kind of criminal background checks are you doing?
It was not till last week that I realized the applications that we've been sending to the city of Tyler were no longer being routed to the police department as we've paid for and as we were assuming that was being done as it had been done traditionally. I don't know when Peter stopped doing that, but that is the Tyler Police Department was doing our criminal background check.
But
I don't know when they stopped
Right,
doing
but
it.
I'm asking you, is when you hire a driver, what do you do?
We have them fill out a city application, and we send it to the traffic department, and it's their responsibility to forward it to the police department for further investigation.
So you don't do it as a private company?
No.
Okay.
And it is hard to police yourself. You don't ask the plumbers and electricians to check their work. You send the inspector to check their work. Why do you want to do that with the taxi drivers?
Well, we have a pretty high level of expectation that the private vendors that are working in the building services department are actually doing their self-policing as well to make sure their quality of work is good. But Jimmy, can you come up for just a second? Excuse me. Explain to me about what we have done over the last 10 years or so.
Since Amanda Cook took over as our administrator, we have not provided third-party criminal checks on anybody. We've never done that. Our license from the state allows us to do criminal checks for criminal investigations, and for personnel, they're going to work directly for the police department only. We don't even provide those checks for city employees here at City Hall. They have a third-party administrator here, and anybody else that's hired somebody in the city uses a third-party administrator through Human Resources.
Okay, so Jimmy, answer this question. Have we had issues with the drivers that are doing the taxi cabs right now?
We just like everybody, if we get a call, we'll go to it, but we haven't had any
No
calls. that
significant
are-
issues?
No, sir.
So Jamal's done very good on his hiring?
Yes, sir.
But there hasn't been criminal background that's gone on in the last 10 years or so.
Not
Peter,
through-
you're not,
Not through the police
Peter,
department.
you're not doing a third-party review, are you?
No, sir.
Okay.
Well, who does it?
Are there any background checks done at all?
So nobody's been doing it?
In my 7 years here, then I rely on the applicant's question, and when they say there have been 2 instances I could remember that on the driver applying for a city driving permit indicated they had a felony background, and I forwarded those 2 applications to Chief Swindle at that time and asked for his opinion. What Chief Swindle did, I don't know what he did, but he did come back and tell me that he was not comfortable with those 2, so I rejected those 2 permits.
So basically, the free market has been dealing with this, and we haven't had any major issues, and Jamal's run a good company, so we haven't had
Yes, sir.
issues. And, okay, that's kind of what I wanted to clear up on safety issues.
So folk have been, all right, because I'm confused. So we've been charging folk to do background checks, but we really haven't been doing background checks?
May I clarify that one?
Yes, please do.
The $25 permit fee was set many years ago. I believe originally when the city ordinance for taxi regulation was set up, and there's nothing in the ordinance requiring or specifying that $25 permit fee was for a criminal background check. Matter of fact, the last time I checked for the information I got from our Human Resources Department to do a criminal background check for our own employee using a third party was $35. So actually, that wasn't really sufficient money that we collect $25 to do a $35 background check. So, and again, it was not specified in the ordinance that required the city to do a criminal background check for the driver's permit.
So if I was a driver
Yes, sir.
and I didn't tell you about a felony conviction, you wouldn't know about it?
I would not know.
Well, I'll say.
Yeah, I agree.
We've been thinking all this time that we've been looking out for our citizens better than this. It's deceitful.
Question.
Yep.
Is there an organization or company that will do criminal background checks in the city of Tyler or state of Texas
You're talking about our city employees?
for drivers, taxi cab drivers?
Yeah, it would,
Yeah, is there an organization that will do criminal background checks if you
Jimmy, do
pay
you
for
want to
that?
come up and answer that since you're?
There are several companies. You can also do it online through the Texas Department of Public Safety. But we actually send some people here to have fingerprints run, and other organizations, whether you ever bonded or licensed, there are locations here in town that can run those to the state for criminal background checks.
So if I was to apply to be a driver and I want to have a criminal background check, I would have to pay for it personally, or whether my employer do that?
Either one of them. It would just be, it's up to the market itself to decide whether the taxi cab company's gonna do it, or the individual business is gonna do it, or they require the actual applicant to do it. There's no mandated rule in our ordinances or law that says which one has to pay for it, and whether that'd be part of our conversation here.
We use a third-party administrator background check for all our rentals, commercial and residential.
But that's totally different than driving with the public.
Yes.
I used to be a coach in Little League football.
Yes, sir.
I had to do a background check just to coach kids playing football, and now I'm hearing we don't have to really do that for a person to drive a cab and transport people within the community.
That's right, and our license doesn't allow us to do that, and I'll give you an example here. Just as part of being a board member for the CAC, I recently, as the chief of police, had to fill out a sheet for them to be able to file and get a background check on me through the process that they have to do through their stuff, because we can't even provide them.
Did you pass?
I did,
Okay,
I did.
good.
So, it's always good.
I'd like to know that.
But they haven't told me I didn't, so I'm assuming I
Okay,
did, so.
good.
But it's the same thing, that the only thing that we can provide right now as a city is for our criminal investigations. The miscommunication in reference to who was doing them in the past, whether that was part of just the permit fee to have the license itself, or just the belief that they were being done, was just a miscommunication on everybody's part. But as far as we know, in recent history, there have been no criminal history checks of taxi cab drivers through the city of Tyler.
And you know, that's one of the positive things about this ordinance. And the revision, the 7th draft of it does include language to where the operating authority shall have a nationally accredited third-party background
Correct.
check provider conduct a local, state, and national criminal background check for each applicant. And this is something that's over and above actually what's been done in the last few years.
Yes.
So it's an increase of public safety.
Yeah, I agree. So we have one more card. We have a card for Trevor, I can't, what is it? Tennyson. Okay, state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Trevor Tennyson. I'm the Public Affairs Director for Texas, Louisiana, and Oklahoma for Uber. My address is 400 West 15th Street, Austin, Texas. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for allowing me to speak today. I come representing Uber, a company that's operating in over 66 countries and 507 cities and all across Texas. We cover about 200 million people in the United States now have access to Uber rides. Thank you and your staff for considering this ordinance today and the work that we've done with them over the last few weeks. And to your constituents who've come out today, I don't really have to say much after all the speakers who tell you about the great services that ride sharing provides, the great economic opportunity. One of the things I did want to mention, there's been a lot of talk about competition and leveling the playing field. One thing that we've seen at Uber is that we're growing the pie of people who use alternative transportation options. So certainly there's an impact on taxi. But what we see is the majority of people actually choose to take an Uber and leave their car at home. These are people who wouldn't have taken a taxi. So we're growing the pie of those who are getting around. We have a national partnership with MAD. As you've heard, we've had substantial positive benefits on DUI reduction. The easier it is for someone to get a ride after drinking late night, the less likely they are to drive home drunk in their own vehicle. That's something that we're really proud of. There's over 34 state legislatures and governors across the country that have adopted statewide regulations for TNCs or transportation network companies. Texas is not one of those states. There are 13 cities in Texas who have passed favorable TNC regulations under which Uber and Lyft operate. We hope that Tyler today will be the 14th city, and if that happens, we will be up and operating in the coming weeks here in Tyler, Texas. So with that, I'll take any questions that anybody has and happy to entertain any questions.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned state legislation. We've got a session coming up in Austin in February or January. What are the likelihood of this being on
I think from what we've heard from the legislature and some legislators, I think the likelihood's pretty high. There's a lot of legislators who have called us and said, hey, look, I'm looking at running a bill. What are your thoughts? What do other states look like? We would like to take this statewide instead of to have some consistent regulatory framework across the state so that drivers can pick up in different places for different big events. And so that we have some consistency across jurisdiction. As you know, transportation services cross jurisdictional bounds quite frequently, and it gets very hard to operate a business and very confusing for enforcement and other things. So in 34 states, we have statewide legislation. I firmly believe that there will be bills introduced. However, we're continuing to go city by city to those cities who want ride-sharing services and who contact us and say, hey, what do we need to do to bring this to our community? We're continuing to work with cities. We're continuing to work. I was in Houston just yesterday and the day before, working with the city there, as well as meetings in Austin to try and fix that situation there. So continuing to work with cities, but I fully expect some bills to be introduced this session.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead, Linda.
Mr. Tennyson, I have a question. This says protecting the public health and safety, so needless to say, insurance was of concern for me.
Sure.
And I just wanted to get this in public record. I spoke with the governmental affairs head at Independent Insurance Agents of Texas, and I was told that when a passenger gets into an Uber vehicle, the liability insurance goes to $1 million. That is Uber's bodily injury liability coverage.
That's correct.
That's correct?
That's correct.
I know the city has no responsibility for that, but can Uber provide us a copy of that insurance policy?
Absolutely, and we've committed to the city that we'll list the city as an additional insured under that policy as well for indemnification purposes to the city.
The state liability limit is 300,000, Mr. Ellison, so I'm not sure where you got the million that you had to have, but it is 300,000, and that does concern me. $1 million is much better. I would love to see it be 2 million, but
Yeah, and that policy, so there's a state insurance law that was passed by the legislature that dictates what TNCs are required to have. And so from the time the passenger gets in the vehicle to the time the passenger gets out, Uber has $1 million policy that's primary to any personal auto insurance. So the driver's personal auto never comes into play, is never on the hook. It's our policy that it is over every single trip.
thank you.
Now, your policy is to not accept cash. How does the insurance, do you accept cash? Let me just ask you.
We do not, no. All payments are through the app, so the driver never has to accept cash and the passenger never has to exchange cash.
My concern is that a great deal of my constituents don't have credit cards, or they don't use them, or they don't have a cell phone, or they don't have an app. I was glad to hear you say that you're growing the field of those who use ride sharing. But our community has seen the demise of a taxi company in our community before, and the impact that it had upon the people that were disenfranchised, that were not tech savvy. My issues also concern public safety. Uber has had some bad news, some bad publicity based upon some bad apples. I'm glad to hear the positive experiences that some people have had, but I don't know if I'm willing to take this risk on public safety. I don't. There were some things about the city that I'm very confused about, that I'm disappointed, that I think should have been communicated better years ago, or whenever we quit doing criminal background checks. I'll go ahead and pass.
Okay. I've got a question about the surge rate.
Yeah.
When we talk about these different events where there's a lot of people, and a lot of people are going to be calling the rideshare company to get a ride home, what keeps that surge rate from being 4 times the normal rate when a lot of people are trying to use it at the same time?
Sure, so the idea of surge pricing is that the price increases as more people demand the service. So it's like an airline or a hotel. The more demand for that service, the higher the price goes. And the reason that is that we want to attract drivers to that area to then meet the demand, and thus the price comes down. So it's a supply-demand issue. So what and the reason why we need a few weeks to ramp up is we want to make sure we have enough drivers to meet the demand so that we don't have surge pricing. That is the goal. But for big events, when there are a lot of people requesting an Uber ride, there may be surge pricing, and that is to encourage drivers to say, hey, look, there's a lot of money to be made, go in that area, and then the price comes down when the demand is met. So what we try and do is to make sure that there's, and this is the key to I think why taxi has struggled for so long, is that there's been a supply cap in many places, and that limits how many can serve the public. And so without a supply cap under this ordinance and what we see elsewhere, we're able to ramp up. So that means that teacher who's working just for the summer and may drive, most of our drivers drive less than 10 hours a week. So we need to be able to sign up enough drivers so that at any given time we can meet the demand. But the point is, you're always guaranteed a ride. And so that is why the surge pricing kind of comes into play.
I'd like to speak. Are you finished?
Well,
Sure. Well, go ahead. Don, you got more questions?
One other
Okay,
question.
sure.
Regarding people with disabilities, you know, the ordinance says that they will be told whether or not they're wheelchair accessible or not. And if they're not, they'll find an alternative. In other markets, have people with disabilities been stranded because there wasn't another alternative?
So in some places, we have what we call Uber Access. Uber Access is a product that we partner with wheelchair accessible vehicles, companies who own wheelchair accessible vehicles, and make them available on the platform. It's tricky for us is because we don't own any vehicles. So we're relying on people to use their personal auto vehicles. And so the permanent wheelchair continues to be a challenge for us. But in cities like Houston, our wait times for wheelchair accessible vehicles are under 20 minutes. So what's part of the due diligence that we need to do here in Tyler is to see how many wheelchair accessible vehicles there are in the city, if they're able to provide that at a 24-hour, access at 24 hours, and then how does that interact with the platform so that we, one, can have that service, but two, can guarantee that somebody, let's say, who takes a wheelchair accessible vehicle to the grocery store isn't stranded when they need a ride back. And the other, just on that point as well, one of the things we've been doing across the country, we have a partnership with DART in Dallas, is to partner with the local transit agency or the paratransit. And that way, the first mile, last mile, when you get out the bus stop and you have to walk a long way, we've partnered so that you can request an Uber, get a discounted rate or some sort of promotion. And then we've also partnered with the paratransit service so that wheelchair accessible vehicles can be had by passengers.
I would just want to make sure that these people are not stranded somewhere.
Sure, absolutely.
I'd like to go back to the surge rate that Councilman Warren just mentioned to get a clear understanding of what I just heard. Are you saying to me that, or to the public, that if I take Uber or any other cab to the mall and I pay $5 and all of a sudden there's 50 people that need a cab at the mall, my rate's going to increase to get back home?
If there's not enough drivers in that area. But our goal is to always have enough drivers. So if there are 50 people at the same time at the mall requesting an Uber, our goal is to have 50 cars available within less than 5-minute wait times.
Well, that sounds, I guess, good for you, but I don't think that's good for the general public, because to me, $5 for 5 miles should be the same 5 miles going, the same 5 miles coming back. It should be the same price.
Well,
that's my personal.
Right, but
and I will tell you too.
But this is not the only participant in the market either.
Right, that person would have the option to call a cab or call another TNC.
Yeah,
get a
I
set
understand
rate.
that.
Or take a public bus.
I don't read either one of those then. I don't think, if it's $5 to go to the mall, it'll be $5 to come back home.
Well,
Personal
I will
opinion.
tell you, we have a function in the app, so it's called upfront pricing. So before, you have to enter your pickup location and enter your drop-off location, and it tells you what the price will be up front, or you can get a fair estimate. So you always know what the price is going to be before you ever request the trip.
And before you get in, so, yeah, to the surge pricing.
Ed, do you have any more questions?
Not on
Not
this one.
right now.
I have some questions for Peter when that time comes.
Okay, sounds great.
My understanding, my little brother drives Uber in Denver, and he drives Uber because he's a starting real estate agent, and when he doesn't have any listings and isn't showing property, that's how he makes ends meet. So it's been really good for him, but he's one of the drivers that when a surge comes up, he'll quit, he'll leave dinner or whatever and go to meet that demand. So I've seen it work really well for the driver as well. It'd be a real positive thing.
Now, I do have, if there's no more questions, I do have a card that was just given.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mark, I don't know how to say your last name. Come on. Okay, you want to come up and say something, or was this just an informational card?
I wanted to say a little bit of something on
Okay, yes, sir.
your policies about requiring background checks or regulations.
State your name and
Mark
address for the record.
Lazar. I'm with Drug, Alcohol, and Testing and Compliance Services. We're an East Texas-based company. We've been around for about 27 years. We do criminal background checks through national databases. We do all kinds of different searches that are customizable. We also do drug screening, drug testing, and 24-hour responses for any time a reasonable suspicion happens. What I'm suggesting is that part of your level playing field is that not only do you do background checks from an accredited company, but you also require, just like anybody else who's operating a passenger vehicle, drug screening, drug testing in some way. if there is an accident, that there would be a way to make sure that the driver was not under the influence at the time. And just a prudent thing across in your statute for city for the public health and safety. That could be an amendment I would hope you would add.
Great. Thank you very much for your comment, sir. Any
Okay.
questions?
Makes sense.
And thank you very much. No,
Thank you.
no question. Thank you, sir. Ed Moore, you'd like Peter to come back up?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for Peter. Number one, would you pick your slide back up that shows the changes from the old to the new?
Yes.
I guess the next one, I guess, what has changed? You had another slide.
Previous one.
Previous?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why did you make these changes to accommodate another company? Why did we move from our current to this particular one?
Can you talk about specific changes as far as the third party?
The third party, all three of them that are listed.
Okay.
Well, the two that are listed.
Because the.
That remains the same.
Remain the same.
So let's go back
Let's
to
go-
the
let's go
page that
change.
says
Yeah,
changes.
Yeah, let's get the changes, I'm sorry.
Next page, yeah, what changes?
You talking about the point number one, the no distinction between.
Yeah, number two and the last two bullets.
Okay, the individual driver is no longer permitted by the, licensed by the city. There are several reasons. We feel like that the additional requirement, if they're already doing a background check, then the purpose of is no longer there for the city to have another permit mimicking what the company's already doing. The original, the existing owners we have didn't really specify who does the background check. I guess the confusion always been the assumption that somebody's doing the background check because it never specified the city or the taxi company. So, but this one will make sure that whoever's operating a business will be doing the background check. So if they are already doing a background check, we didn't feel like that the city needs to have additional requirement to have permit every driver. Because that need is no longer there because the company will have their ID cards identifying either digitally or have a physical ID. So that's one of the reasons why we no longer require the permit from the city.
The last bullet, explain that, why you changed
The rate and fees for not set by the city. The current ordinance sets the rate for a taxi company, and if the cost of living increases and the cost of doing business increases for the taxi company, they will have to come before you and maybe have another hearing like with the public comments before they can set the rate, which is very difficult for
But it's the way we've
whoever's
done it in the
doing
past,
business
though,
here.
right?
We would take away that to allow the consumer to decide what the rate would be. So therefore, the rate can actually come down because of free market if they compete. So in some way, we feel like deregulation is the goal that we want to let the market decide what is a reasonable rate that people are willing to pay without having to come back every time that if the rate's not reasonable, not profitable.
Yeah, and I'd like to answer that real quick too. I mean, whenever you have generally known, and it is true, whenever you have a monopoly situation, and several of our people that have franchise agreements in this community, we have the right to review their rates each year. But when you have free market and you have more than one participant in the market, then the market sets the rates generally. So in the past, we've had it because we've only had one provider of passenger service. Now that we're going to have more options, you let the free market do the work. And if that was the case with Encore and some other franchises, we would also open that into a market situation. But so franchise
But on those, you actually don't, The city has the opportunity to review it, but the city can't deny it.
Right, that's right, that's
Argue
right.
that before the Public Utility Commission.
That's correct. But we do have the right to review.
Correct.
And somewhat that is what we would have with the taxi company. I mean, if they came to us for an increase, we would have a discussion on it. It'd be very hard to turn it down, so.
One more.
Is the market.
One more inquiry and I'll be through.
Sure.
What about, did you guys discuss signage? I mean signage or identification of vehicles?
Yes, we did discuss that.
What was your conclusion?
The conclusion is we're not requiring that because I believe most of the TNC company on the app will identify who is coming to you and the description of the vehicle and the license plate. So you will know who is coming to pick you up. So therefore, we're not requiring a so-called trade dress to identify the vehicle because you should be able to identify the vehicles picking you up. But we're not prohibiting that. If a company chooses to do so, they're free to do so.
We are requiring that identification cards, though, are included in each vehicle. So if it is one of these Uber or Lyft type of vehicles that is picking you up, you still, through your application, you know who the driver is, what the car is, but you'll also be able to see the identification and information on the driver in the car.
So what you're saying, if somebody wants to put Uber on the side of their car, they can do that?
I think that would be up to the company
Right.
to decide if they allow that. But our one is.
We don't say that they can.
No, that's right.
Okay.
Okay, when we have a complaint or we have an issue, who is Uber here? How do we enforce this?
If it is a criminal complaint, of course, I would immediately contact the police department to investigate. If it is some people complaining about.
So then how does the
affair,
police
I'll probably
department
contact-
locate?
Yes, sir.
How does the police department locate the driver?
What explained to me is there is a permanent record on your, if you are using a TNC such as Uber, there is a receipt showing when you got that ride, who provided you with that ride, and that information I will probably forward to the police department if I got the complaint, or if the police department has a complaint, they probably will go back to Uber with that information. And in our ordinance, we require, if it's an emergency, life and death, then they have 24 hours to work with us to, as quickly as possible, to resolve that. And that database, as I explained to me, that they have that and they will work with the police department.
Jimmy, do you want
I'm not
to?
speaking out of turn.
It's in the ordinance too.
Yes, sir, just like every criminal investigation would start there, if you have the actual license plate number, you have the name of the individual, just like every criminal investigation we do, we start with either no suspect or a suspect, and we start backtracking it from there. We can run driver's license checks, we can run license plate checks, start tracking the vehicle down from there, and from that point, whether it's an Oklahoma car, an Arkansas car, a Texas car, we'll track the registrations and everything, linking it back to an individual, contacting that person, like we do in every criminal investigation we do right now. If we have the name of the individual through Uber on the app, which you should get, who's going to be picking you up, that's a baseline for us to start on, like every other investigation. We do robbery investigations on a consistent basis. We do other investigations where we have 0 leads to follow up on, and we're able to track those down also. With an app like this, if we have that license plate number, or we have the name of the individual, that's a good baseline for us to start. We hope or would pray that, just like everybody, that we don't hit any roadblocks, that we would have the cooperation of the company, that we would have the cooperation of the taxi cab company, like everybody else, and if they would provide that information for us to let us know who did it. And if necessary, we can get subpoenas or search warrants and try that route. If they're outside the state, then we can also ask the assistance of the federal government.
I'd like to move to approve 01.
Or do
What'd you say?
Okay, we have a motion made to approve 01.
I didn't mean to.
Is there a second? We can do questions after, I guess.
I'll second. Let Linda.
Okay, well, I have a motion by Nix and a second by Sellers to approve 01, but at this time, there were some more questions, so.
I want to make some comments.
Okay.
I've struggled with this ordinance from the very beginning, and I've been accused of being on the fence. And I think because of the accusation, I have spent more time than I should reading about other cities and just doing my own due diligence so that I can make a decision based on what's up here and not what influence I've heard from people in the community. And when I saw what happened in Austin, and I see where the citizens vote that Uber had to have police fingerprinted background checks on the drivers, Uber pulled out of Austin and left. And so I read more and more about that, and I pulled up some articles. And one of the headlines I read was, as Austin struggles to understand life without Uber and Lyft, DUI arrests are on the rise. I read another one that says, in Lyft and Uber's absence, Austin DUI rates spike. I got with Chief Toller and I asked him, I said, what are the DUI and DWI rates in Tyler? And for 2015, there were 213 DWI arrests. And so far in 2016, there have been 162 arrests. So I look at these numbers and I really think what can happen to these numbers if Lyft or Uber or ride sharing is here in Tyler. So it really influences what I'm thinking. I also read an article out of a Pittsburgh newspaper that said entrepreneurs use Uber to make ends meet while they're trying to create new businesses. My wife and I were in Dallas and we had an Uber driver that was a nurse, and she drove Uber on the side so that she and her husband can make a down payment on a house. So I see the job creation and job opportunity. I'm more pleased now with the background check by a third party than what we've had in the past, because evidently in the past it's been insufficient or non-existent.
It's been a lie.
And so really, to me, this whole thing is about consumer choice. And if someone is afraid of Lyft or Uber or the safety of it, don't use it. If you want to use it, use it. To me, it's all just about, it's giving you a choice. And that's the key word, it's giving you a choice.
Okay. Is anybody else would like to make comments or ask any question? In hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
No.
Right. It's a no too.
Yeah, no, whatever.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so the motion passes, and thank you, everybody coming and expressing their opinion. That's what, okay. And I guess, so now we'll take a recess.
Can I say, Mayor, it's
Yes.
Beat your
It's
gavel.
been really exciting to see democracy work. The mayor and I talked about that yesterday,
I don't
so.
think they hear you.
Okay, so
I don't think they hear you.
we'll recess for about 5 minutes. How about that?
It's over. I think everybody can relax.
So we're coming back
We've
from
been knowing this coming, just didn't know it.
recess at this time. Let's go ahead and everybody that's left, thank you very much for your patience. I did want to make sure that the public had the full opportunity to voice their opinion to us, and so we've gone through that process. And so now we're back to Heather, and we are on H1. Is that correct?
All right.
And then we're going to move, Heather, right when you're finished with that, would you go ahead and move into R1, and then we'll come back for H2 after R1.
Yes, sir.
And then we'll make Davis stay to the very end.
This is a request for annexation. The proposed annexation contains 32 single-family homes with a remainder undeveloped, encompassing just under 23 acres, as you can see here on the map. This land is located at the northwest intersection of Paluxy Drive and Toll 49. The proposed original zoning is for R1A that you can see here on this conceptual drawing. R1A would be for the residential properties fronting on Skidmore. Actually R1B, and then you have more R1B south of that, And then south of that R1B, just north of Centennial Parkway, would be RMF for multifamily. And then moving to your northeast, you would have the multifamily. And then on the northern section of Centennial that connects with Biloxi, and then C1. We also noticed that there was a C1 request associated with this annexation. However, the area of the land didn't meet the minimum. So what the applicant has done is gone ahead and submitted an additional request with meets and bounds to show the overall C1 that you can see at this location right here. So this will all be done at the same time. The council will have the opportunity to vote on both the annexation and that zoning request at the September 28th council meeting. It is recommended that the city council conduct the first public hearing to receive input on the proposed annexation, and no final action is required at this time. And just to give you a schedule, this is the first hearing. Our second hearing will be at a special called meeting on August 31st. Then it goes to our planning and commission meeting on September 6th with final consideration from the council on September 28th.
Deborah, do I need to go in and adjourn or not, whatever you say?
You just open a public meeting.
Okay, great. We will now open the first public hearing on August 24th relating to H1. So we're in the public comment section. Anyone that would like to make comments, you're welcome to come up.
I'd like to make some comments.
Councilman
Is he
Nix would
public?
like to make.
Well, this is the first
Not
of the
a
meeting.
public.
What?
You're not a
I can
public.
go down there if you want me to.
No. You go ahead.
What I would say is P&Z's been in ongoing negotiation with the developer, and I've had multiple meetings with the neighborhood. One thing we are going to do in the RMF, my biggest concern with this agreement is the two RMF sections not become apartments, something that high density. So the developer has, to my understanding, and we will clarify this before our final vote, but has agreed to do a deed restriction on the two RMF parcels to 4 doors or less. The significance of that is the break from commercial lending to residential lending is 4 doors to 5 doors. So it should adequately restrict a big apartment developer or somebody coming in. And I don't think the developer currently has plans for that, but if the property got sold with a straight RMF zoning, I'd want it to have that restriction, and that's something the neighbors have requested as well. Other than that, I think we're actually close on this.
Now, Heather, by the time you come back, we're also going to have, I'm hoping, or I want some sort of clarification that the only reason I'm agreeing to the RMF is that that will only be accessed from the Centennial Parkway relocation. That it won't be done through the additional street they're adding or from Skidmore in any fashion.
Correct.
How do we deal with that?
The owner and the agent have actually submitted a new preliminary plat,
Okay.
and that will do exactly what
Okay,
we're
because
expecting.
And we'll be able to see the preliminary.
Yes. I can certainly bring it, you'll see it, I think we'll be able to bring it to one of the public hearings.
That'd
If
be great.
not,
Yeah, good.
Awesome.
Because I'd like to review that, but,
Okay.
okay, I don't see any comment cards at all. So I think I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing section on this. Going to once, going twice? Okay. We're closed on the public hearing section. And and you have the comments from us. So now we will go on to R1.
this is
Is
a
that
request.
correct? Deborah, did I do that correct enough? Okay.
This is a request that the city council consider adopting a resolution nominating Delek Refinery for award of a State of Texas Enterprise Zone project designation. Delek currently owns and operates a 75,000 barrel per day petroleum refinery in Tyler. Over the next 5 years, Delek anticipates spending in excess of $150 million on capital improvements at its Tyler refinery. Delek currently employs over 300 full-time employees and expects to maintain its existing level of employment and retain all full-time jobs for benefit under the Enterprise Zone program. The designation of Delic as an enterprise project will contribute significantly to the achievement of the plans of the city for development and revitalization for this area. It is recommended that the City Council adopt a resolution nominating Delic Refinery for award of a State of Texas Enterprise Zone project designation. And there are representatives here today if you have any questions.
Do we have a layout of where that will be?
No.
What the boundaries of that?
Let's see, I don't believe I have.
And I see Tom Mullins out there. I don't have a card from Tom Mullins, but,
Yeah, I'd like to just come up and explain, Tom, what this
yeah,
actually means.
yes, I'd like to know.
Or somebody from Delic could probably explain as well.
Yeah, we can talk.
You go ahead and start.
Specifically, I'll just give you a quick overview and.
Yes, sir.
Delic
State your
reps are
name and
here.
your address.
Tom Mullins, Tyler Economic Development Council.
I've been doing that to everybody today, so you got to.
315 North Broadway, Tyler, Texas. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council and staff. This is a state designation incentive, which is tied to investment, which is estimated to be over the next several years, $150, $175 million of investment. Any kind of products that Delic purchases that pay sales tax, they will get reimbursed from the state portion of the sales tax, not from the city portion.
That's
So
good.
yeah, you still get your money, plus you get all the jobs, plus all the investment. And all it does is encourage companies like Delic to invest in Texas and to stay here rather than invest in other operations that they may have in other states.
Would you ask them to?
So,
very kindly.
Take their Uber somewhere.
Yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, that's just how the program works. You've done this a number of times in the past. Train has taken advantage of this program and other companies in the area. And it's an incentive, it's a retention incentive created by the state legislature and operated through the Governor's Office of Economic Development. And the application is made by a third-party consultant that's familiar. I mean, you don't even have the administrative responsibility. Ryan Consulting will do the application, they'll monitor the job creation, and they'll monitor all the payments back to the city and eventually the savings to Delic over the, is it a 5-year term, Reese? Yeah, 5-year term of the Enterprise Zone project.
And Mayor, I think your question was about just the location. I don't think they're expanding their footprint as much as.
So it's just their footprint.
Yeah, it'll be the property, the boundaries of the Delic plant site.
Pretty.
How many acres is that, Randy?
It's pretty.
480
Yeah, starting
Will
to
it
say
increase
pretty
their
significant.
volume of capacity output? Is that what it's gonna do, or?
Come on up, Randy.
Will y'all come on up and state your name
We
and
got
address
you
for
here,
the
we're gonna
record
ask.
again?
My name's Randy Goodspeed. I'm the manager of capital projects for Delic Refining. We do anywhere from $30 to $50 million worth of projects every year. So over the next 5 years, we're planning on maintaining that amount of capital work. But really, when you look up at the, well, I guess you have
Yeah.
the processing units are in this area. So what we're talking about really doing is doing projects that are based on reliability, environmental, discretionary type projects to increase capacity of the overall refinery. We're also doing some projects in the tank farm area, which is this area. We're putting in some new tanks, some firefighting equipment as well. So.
Well, he mentioned 75,000 barrels a day, is that
Right,
correct?
right.
What, do y'all have an anticipated increase for what these projects will do?
Well, we've recently done a turnaround where we went from 65,000 barrels a day up to 75,000 barrels a day. That occurred in 2015.
Right.
This is really to maintain reliability of the refinery. And it's just like running your car at 70 miles an hour, day in and day out. We have to keep it reliable. We have to go in and change the oil.
So it's not really increasing it above 75, it's still just
Making
maintaining
sure
that.
you can still do something.
Right. If we don't maintain it, we can't stay at 75,000
We appreciate
barrels.
what y'all are doing in the community and the investment in the jobs and the
Amen.
sales tax.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
Any more questions of Tom or Delic on this?
I move to approve.
Oh,
Did you
no.
have a question?
Go ahead.
Linda made a
I
motion.
move to approve R1.
Second.
And Warren with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you all very much for wading through. And so now you are very familiar with Uber's ordinance and the ride share in the community, so you're welcome to use it anytime. That's right, that's right. Okay, thank you all very much for being here. And so now we'll go back to yeah, we're going to H2. Sorry, I'm trying to keep up here. And, oh, hello, Kedrick.
Hello.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, Mayor, Council, you have a request that City Council consider conducting a public hearing for August the 24th and August 31st, 2016 on the proposed FY 16-17 annual budget and on the proposed tax rate of 23 cents per $100 of taxable value, and consider taking action to adopt the proposed tax rate and fiscal year 16-17 annual budget on September 14, 2016. As you all are aware, we did our initial presentation on July the 27th, 2016. And also, just to make you all aware that we are proposing a tax rate of 23 cents and our effective rate is 21.7 cents and our rollback rate is 23.5 cents. And what I'll do is I'll go through a very abbreviated presentation because you all
Thank you.
Yes.
We're Ubered out.
Having said that, I'll continue on. Okay. So our total budgeted funds is $146.7 million. General fund highlights. Many of you have seen this pie chart before. The largest source of revenue, of course, comes from sales tax, and our second largest source of revenue is property tax. Also, we're also seeing a 0.04% increase in proposed revenues, which is about a $27,000 increase, and that's largely because of a decline in sales tax revenue and some other revenues as well, but primarily sales tax. Also, as I mentioned before, we're proposing a 23 cent per $100 value proposed rate. Our existing rate is 22 cents. So 1 cent increase. We are actually doing a 1 cent increase to create a new capital, new street improvement fund to do street maintenance. And generally in the past, we funded this out of Fund 102. We would have surplus dollars from the general fund, and we would be able to do some street improvement projects. But because of sales tax revenue being down and other revenues as well, we are doing a 1 cent increase so that we can make sure that these very well needed street improvement projects get done. Also, general fund expenditures. There's a
I'm sorry, I want to say, I got to say one thing. Sorry. Fund 103 is going to be created, and that is where that 1 cent will go directly into that account. And,
yes, sir.
While we cannot mandate by law that money is utilized for street maintenance, we as a council will all agree emphatically that 1 cent will be used forever for street maintenance.
And when the council adopts the budget, we'll have a policy creating Fund 103 that'll be part of, that'll also come to y'all as a resolution.
Okay, good.
And thus, if the council wants to change that in the future, they can, but it'll take a council action.
Oh, good, I like that,
Yeah.
good. I like that, very good.
Right, and we'll approximately have about $660,000 or $70,000 that'll go into that fund strictly for street improvement.
Yes, good. Okay, very good.
Also, general fund expenditures, there's actually a decrease in expenditures of about 0.64%. In dollars, it's $410,000. Our police department, of course, is our largest department in the general fund, and then followed by the fire department. And generally, what we tell individuals is property tax barely covers the fire department. So we're very heavily dependent on sales tax, and that's why you've gotten a lot of the updates over the current year on our plans to make sure we end the current fiscal year in a positive
report
manner.
what it went up last month.
We were up a little over 3%,
Yes.
by I think 3.25%.
Yes,
General capital projects, we're looking at library roof repairs of $45,000, public safety equipment, the watch guard digital lease, first year of that, roughly $140,000. And then our children's park match is agreement we made a few years ago for $25,000. Other funds, we are looking at an actual increase on utility bills, and you can see here how we compare to our benchmark cities as well. Okay, for utilities, we're looking at 4 new positions, and a lot of that is tied to regulatory mandates that we have. So we're looking at 2 employees for hydrant flushing, which is about $134,000 with equipment. Wastewater collections, 2 employees there as well. Roughly about $70,000 in costs there. Also, capital improvements, and I won't go through the entire list, but this is generally what we do from our Fund 503. And you can see some of the highlights is Cumberland Road tank painting, which is $270,000. Raw water pump station, $65,000. In the wastewater side, we're looking at Grundy Lift Station, which is almost $500,000. And emergency sewer repairs on the wastewater side as well, $150,000. And the big one is Southside Waste Treatment Plant Belt Press Facility, $820,000. And then also some stormwater projects of $300,000. Solid waste, we have no rate increases there, but we're looking at adding a code enforcement officer, about roughly $41,000, including benefits. And also, we're looking at converting some temp positions to full-time positions. So it's no additional cost to the city. We're just doing a conversion, and that's 1 welder, 2 recycle laborers, and 1 account specialist. Cemetery, hot tourism visitor facilities, we're looking at implementing a opening and closing administrative fee, which will equate to about $25,000 in revenues. Also, expenditures, we're looking at purchasing a columbarium to help generate additional revenue. And that additional revenue for the columbarium is about $72,000. This fund, for the last 2 or 3 years, has received a subsidy from the general fund in the neighborhood of about $200,000. So these are just some things that we're trying to do to try to make this fund a little bit more self-supporting.
So prior to this, Kedrick, we didn't have any fee for opening and closing at our cemeteries? There was no fee the city charged?
Right.
Really?
So this will be a fee of $100 per event. Okay. And they're estimating about $25,000 there. Right. Also, we're looking at primarily the reason why it's not self-supporting is the trust fund is not receiving the amount of interest that it has gotten in the past because of low interest rates. So that's why the general fund is having to help support the cemetery fund.
Correct.
Also on tourism, fund as well. We're looking at spending dollars as we normally do every year to try to help take care of our facilities there. Repaint of Harvey Hall, $7,000. Replace restroom partitions in Harvey's North Foyer. And also we're looking at improvements for Stewart Park and then the Rose Complex Master Plan.
Those blinds are so nice at Harvey Hall, I can't believe you want to change them.
Well,
They're hideous.
I'm glad you like them.
I think we found our first budget cut.
Personnel, so we're looking at, because revenues are down, we're looking at not doing a pay increase this fiscal year. But we're also going to fully implement the living wage plan that we started last fiscal year. So the budget calendar we're looking at, we've completed the fiscal alignment reviews. Departments have submitted their budgets, of course. We've done an initial presentation. Today is an actual public hearing, and then a week from today we'll conduct our second public hearing, and then on September 14th we'll be looking at doing adopting the budget and actual tax rate, and that will be at this location here at City Hall at 212 North Bonner. I have to say that for
Okay,
statutory reasons.
At the next public hearing, I would like to see, will the resolution be ready for the 1 cent?
It will be for the September
It'll
14th
be-
meeting.
Right, that's when we approve it, but can we have it
Correct.
for the next public hearing next week? Can you make it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Then,
I think y'all will be surprised. It's actually not that complicated.
oh, I know, but, I want to make sure the legal staff has plenty of time. They've kind of been busy the last couple of weeks.
Thank you, Kedrick.
So at this point, I would like, would request that you would open this up. for
Yes,
public hearing.
we will now open a public hearing relating to H2. Do I need to define it any differently?
Good budget, yeah.
Okay. At this point, there are no members from the public coming forward. So at this time, we will close the public hearing for H2, and we will move on to R2. Thank you, Kedrick.
Nowadays.
No, I want to go to, no, just kidding, just kidding. Yeah, that's right, that's right. Take your time. A little bit faster.
Good morning, or good afternoon, no, it's good morning. This is a resolution to authorize the city manager to accept an FAA grant, and what this grant would represent, be a 90-10 grant again, which is our third of 4 in the series of grants that we've planned for our runway rehabilitation project. We've not actually received the grant yet, but I anticipate it just any time, and we need to react very quickly because the fiscal year will be coming up real soon at the end of September for the federal government, the Department of Transportation. So this is a request today to consider the resolution authorizing our city manager to accept it should it come in, and we can respond very quickly. Kedrick, what'd you do to the, oh, there he is. Yeah, I'll tell you everybody. Just a real quick overview of the budget for the grant. We've received the bids, have many of the contracts in for engineering services, for testing of the materials. One thing I want to mention to you, the construction cost, that includes, like I said, bids that we've opened back in 1st of July. And we've held those bids with the anticipation of that grant coming to us in September. The engineering cost, this is the thing I'm really pleased about. Initially, the instrument landing system portion of our new runway was not included in the project, and now it is. So this will include engineering agreements with the FAA and our consultant for the civil side for putting the new instrument landing system in on the new runway. It's a real plus for how we coordinate our project and minimize an impact to the customers. So I'm real pleased about that. It appears we're going to get really nice equipment on this job. And you can see the breakdown as far as the FAA grant, which the 90% at $8.9 million. Just a real quick look at what we're planning to do. The orange is the first grant. It's complete, and just some punch list items. And the blue, that's the second grant. It's currently, they're pouring concrete on that today. And we anticipate that going through the summer. And you see the pink portion kind of to the left on the drawing. That's what will be encompassed in this grant that we're requesting today. And that's relocation of roads, clearing for the new instrument landing system. Of course, the road relocation has to be it's a necessity just for clearance and airspace requirements for the new runway. And you can see that pink piece there that's on the left, that's the extension of the runway, which should bring it out to about 8,350 feet. So that's a real plus. And then I think once the blue's done, the pink's done, then we'll start opening up portions of the runway again. So I'm excited about that, because right now we're running on 2 runways. And this will give us that third portion for a while we go into that yellow section. So we're trying to coordinate this to keep 2 runways open at all times. And then we bid this with additive alternates. You can see on the right there's some pink there. We weren't sure how the grant would come in, and so we wanted to give ourselves flexibility to award as much as we could. So the grant will cover those additive alternates according to what the FAA has told me now. So real pleased about that. And once the grant's received, then we plan to then start quickly awarding these contracts to make sure that we can get this done. And I'd like to be able to start construction season as quickly as we can. So the Airport Advisory Board also reviewed this request and unanimously recommended approval. Any questions?
How long is all this going to take there?
This contract for the pink is about a year in calendar days with the additive alternates added to it. And it's running simultaneously with the blue. You know, we're still in that blue segment too. And we're still within contract time on it. One thing I really hope for is in the yellow. Usually that grant cycle, we're seeing it, is about this time of year next year. I want to see what we can do about maybe moving that grant up a little bit sooner. And that's going to be a tough challenge.
So are we looking at like a 5-year horizon to get all this done?
No, 2018.
Everything we're looking at?
The pink, the pink, or all the runway, and you see the green portion, that's an adjoining taxiway. That would be in the 19 year.
I'm thinking about everything. The whole thing, how long is it going to take to get done?
2019.
Okay, that was my question.
And it's all dependent on how these grants roll in too.
Right, I understand.
Yeah, when we started, it was a long time ago.
With environmental
It takes
assessments.
time.
And a lot of design, the environmental assessments take a lot of time.
Well, this is a major improvement for our community. There's no question about it.
So does having this runway closed down create heartburn?
I think with, it's caused some impact. There's been some load restrictions on days where maybe it's very hot and not a lot of wind, maybe going down in the runway headings. But on the most part, I think, people were well prepared for it. We notified our airlines well ahead of time. So they planned and put the aircraft in here that could match our conditions. And just to kind of give you an idea of how we compared, like I was at LaGuardia Airport a couple of weeks ago, and their longest runway is 7,000 feet. And, they're 737s, A321s, larger aircraft. It is somewhat of an impact, but it's working out, I think, better than really what I expected.
So now that we're sure we're going to get these pink areas, we can get bigger planes in?
Well, once the runway's complete, what we started off with was 7,200 feet. Now we'll be at 8,350 feet. The pavement is far greater as far as what it can do on weight carrying capacity. So yes, it can be capable and enable the airport for larger aircraft. And with the ILS, or instrument landing system, I think we'll see a lot of improvements to that, a lot of new equipment, and that's a real plus.
Well, great. Well, I'm glad this has been a great long-term plan that's come together, so we're proud for it.
Good job, Davis.
You're doing a good job.
Well, thank you.
Very good.
Keeping this going.
Team effort, for sure.
Yes.
Very happy.
So I'll take a motion.
Move to approve, O2.
Motion by Boundary, second by Moore. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Did Ed say that, or did Don say that?
No, I did.
You did? I thought so.
It sounds.
Y'all started laughing over there, so I didn't know.
We're messing.
Okay, so now we're on to O2, and then we have M1.
All right, Mayor and Council. This is part of our biannual review, at least a biannual review, in looking at our Unified Development Code and looking at possible amendments that we receive from not only internally, but from our development community, business owners, citizens, and other design professionals. So they all contribute to this process. And for this round of changes, I'll start off with the sign content neutrality. I will not bore you with all the details because I can believe you. Trust me. Kyle spent many hours looking through our code to ensure that we comply with what came out of the Supreme Court in relation to the Reed versus Town of Gilbert, and we'll be in good shape now. So the significant things that I want to point out about these changes is that the proposed sign ordinance revisions provide for a more general regulatory program for signs in the city of Tyler that did not reduce any allowances that were previously afforded for on-site advertising. In addition to the specific revisions, the substitution clause, the severability clause, was also added to protect remaining portions of the ordinance should a legal challenge be made to its constitutionality. So in general, there were changes made. I can give you a good example of content neutrality. Basically, we couldn't have a portion of our ordinance that said in a specific zoning district, just because you are this type of use, let's say a bed and breakfast, you're limited to a different size sign than everybody else. So those were areas that were cleaned up to make sure that we were conforming to this Supreme Court ruling. And then moving on to another type of sign. Currently, the city prohibits roof signs. However, in looking at some of the signs that we see in other communities and other opportunities, there were this type of roof sign here that you can see where it could be a principal type sign for on a flat roof. So in making sure that we are, again, consistent with content neutrality, we had to get very creative, and that's exactly what Kyle did. And moving to the next slide, you can see, I believe we'll go to the next one. There's an example of what you might see, how this is going to work. So in a development where you have multi-tenant, you have the ability to do a master sign plan, which will, you already allowed a freestanding sign, but a master sign plan will also allow you an additional freestanding sign for directional purposes. That's what you see there that just popped up. It looks like a monument sign. Those are typically restricted to 32 square feet. So if a development wanted to utilize a roof sign to identify the overall development, they could submit a master sign plan and then opt for the roof sign in lieu of that additional sign there. So you can see the trade-off there in the illustration. So that's basically the recommendation there. It does adds a little bit more of character to different developments that you've probably seen in other cities. And it has a little limited impact on our other areas, because one of the main concerns was, are we going to start seeing roof signs on all types of buildings? And no, the only way you can get a roof sign is if it's for a multi-tenant development and it's through a master sign plan. So there is a limitation there. Our next area is for stacking. You see here residential gatehouse stacking. We received this from the development community where, there was this general requirement for stacking, and it was a little excessive for some smaller gated communities. So the proposal was to provide flexibility for smaller gated developments. Staff is proposing a more proportional stacking space requirement for residential gatehouses. And you can see here in the reference table what that looks like. So if you have less than 50 lots, it's one space, and then one space per 10 lots, minimum of 2. If you have over 50 lots, 5 spaces. So it's proportional to the number of lots that you have in the development, and that seemed to make more sense. Our next area is for mobile food units. This is our food trucks, and we heard from the community that they would like to see some changes made to the restriction on a number of hours, consecutive hours, that they could operate at any one location. And so that was proposed to stop at 6 hours. So that way that they could be able to serve maybe 2 meals, so maybe breakfast and lunch. And that gave them more flexibility in that regard. For tree stabilization, this was mainly introduced as a proposal to reduce maintenance to trees that were planted, to reduce replacement of trees that were damaged, safety concerns, and minimize compliance issues. So what you can see here in the pictures on the left, you see a more traditional type of staking, and then on the right is using what is being proposed today for non-residential new installation of trees. This technique is a stabilization below grade with root ball anchoring systems, as you can see here on this illustration. And both techniques are comparable in cost. However, above grade systems are maintenance intensive. So what can happen is those above grade, if the maintenance doesn't happen, if you don't go back and cut, then the tree can girdle, and then that can eventually create a damaged tree that is going to die, and then there's maintenance. And so just helps minimize that type of situation when you do the below grade stabilization, and there's less maintenance involved in that.
And you're saying that it's comparable cost?
Yes.
And that's what was found out in the committee?
Right, exactly. In fact, what staff did is visit with the landscaping contractors, and they stated that many of them already use this type of stabilization, and that the major contractors do this as a professional best practice. And we also found out that the inventory is in existence. So if anybody is concerned about the inventory of this type of product, it is available. And even the landscaping contractors said sometimes they even make their own.
Okay.
Is this for just commercial?
Yes, sir.
Not
This is
residential?
just commercial.
Just commercial.
It's not retroactive.
Right.
And you can submit a plan and submit a different form of tree staking.
Correct.
So-
Right, and yeah, this is going to be the recommended. Today, our code doesn't include any kind of direction on what type of tree stabilization to use. This is a best practice. However, if there is a situation and the applicant is delivering plans and this form of tree stabilization just isn't the right one to use for whatever reason, they can go ahead and suggest the other forms.
Because I'd like some options for tree
Yeah,
stabilization.
we're not
Yeah,
doing a
exactly.
straight mandate or anything like
Right.
that, which was our, biggest concern.
Good. Thank you.
And our next one is for private ways for residential districts. This would require private ways in our planned mixed-use residential or mixed residential and our planned multifamily to be constructed of concrete. And this is for durability purposes. There was some concern that in these areas, the private ways didn't have the same construction standards as our public and private streets. So this was just to, instead of saying, okay, let's make them have the same standard, let's do something so that we can address the durability of those private ways within those developments. And those were really the substantive changes. We had some clarifications, and I believe we do have someone in the audience to speak on a portion of the UDC recommended amendments. We did take this to our developers roundtable in March. Recommendations were presented to the UDC Review Committee in June. Then the recommendations were presented again to the Developers Roundtable on June 21st. All groups were in general agreement with the recommended changes. And at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, we had a Trees Committee representative, Ken Wheeler Jr., spoke in favor of the changes regarding tree stabilization. The Planning and Zoning Commission, by a 7-0 vote, recommends approval of the proposed amendments to the UDC.
Any questions, Heather? Because we do have one, someone that has a card. Would you like to speak?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Sure. State your name and address for the record and go ahead.
Good morning. Carlo D'Angelo, Tyler Food Truck Park. Mayor Hines and honorable members of the council. There is a proposed amendment to the food truck park section of the ordinance with respect to water lines and drain lines. And I'm hopeful that the council will approve these changes because they are duplicitous of what is required by the commissary for these trucks. These trucks have water on them. What we're currently required to do is provide a water line and a wastewater line on the food truck park so that they can have fresh water and drain water, which is going to encourage them to use more water than their trucks can hold, and it's going to burden us with having to manage that wastewater, increase our grease trap, when they are going to do that anyway at their commissary. So we're hopeful that that requirement that's currently on the books can be relaxed because that's going to cause a lot of development costs for us to incur and basically duplicate what they have to do at commissary anyway. And I wanted to just very briefly touch on the state of food trucks in our community. I'm starting to relate to Kevin Costner and Field of Dreams a lot more now because he built a baseball park with no baseball players. I'm building a food truck park with no food trucks. As it stands right now, the only food truck we had, Curbside Taco, their temporary permit has expired and they still cannot meet net health requirements. I've provided Manager Broussard with a detailed analysis of a comparison between our net health regulations and Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, and San Antonio, and highlighted very stringent requirements that we have that are different than all of those other requirements in other municipalities. And I'm working with Net Health to try and relax those, but I'm urging this committee to please, in any way that you can, help in that endeavor. Because as it stands right now, our regulations are stricter than any other major city in our surrounding area. And Curbside Taco is having to operate under temporary permits at this point.
Well, thank you for your comments. I think Net Health is being ridiculous and impeding free enterprise that we just dealt with earlier on another issue. And I think Net Health is completely wrong in their position. And we have tried to express that over the last several years. I have, but I would agree that we really need to stress that more. And I'm sorry that they're not being reasonable with expectations. I mean, I know buildings that they approve.
Amen.
They approve for people to eat in and say the food is healthy. Those buildings they're just in horrible condition. Right. However, when it comes to food trucks, they've decided that you need a brand new food truck, and it has to be in much better shape than 50% of the small family-owned restaurants. Right. And I think what we ought to do is make sure that their job is to say if the food is safe or not to consume. Their job is not to comment about buildings. That's a City of Tyler position, and that's what our development services does. But we need to make sure that we are reducing ridiculous oversight that they are doing. And I'm pretty close to having enough, Mr. City Manager, on that.
And I will do whatever I can to help you as well. When I hear about and talk to the guy with the taco truck and have the permit taken away, he's got brads in the floor. Yeah. And he has to replace the entire floor with a solid piece because the little grommet can hold bacteria. The guy's trying to make a living.
It's heartbreaking. I'm doing everything I can to promote him, to push, because if we lose him in this community, that's devastating. Yeah. And all I'm asking Net Health to do is to at least match major municipalities like Dallas. But why are we more stringent than Dallas and Fort Worth?
Great question. I have the same question. It's ridiculous.
I thought we had passed this. I thought it was, and I'm sorry to hear that you're having these difficulties, but it gets very frustrating when we're trying to do some progressive things for downtown,
right,
and we get stuck in the mud because of net health, and I'm really sick of it. We need to do something.
Now, back at the beginning of August, George Roberts told me that he had already met with you, that
Yes.
they were going to have a kind of a meeting and summit to kind of go over the different
Yes.
regulations with food trucks and kind of hear back from them. I even asked for the old food truck, I guess, advisory group to have them be part of that. Have you heard anything from him on that?
I did meet with the Director of Net Health, and I did voice my concerns, and I did provide them with my breakdown and analysis, which if you could please forward to the committee members so they can see what the struggles are and where the areas of concern are. And they are open to considering. But I need some help to push this through. I'm going to form an East Texas Food Truck Association. I don't have enough going on in my life right now, but I'm going to form this because I think we need to unify. There are a couple of trucks in the works, but as it stands right now, ladies and gentlemen, I don't have any tenants.
Mr. City Manager, did they do this for us? I mean, do we are in charge of food preparation in our community. That's one of our municipal responsibilities.
Correct.
And we have
I
sent
guess
that authority to an outside organization.
Yes, we currently outsource any as far as food inspection permits and review through Net Health.
And I am very much a private sector guy. I don't want us to increase the size of our municipal government. We do very well and are very efficient. But we might need to take that back from them.
Man, we took the animals.
Because if they can't seem to be realistic about it, and since we're in a budget year, we might be able to take that out of their budget immediately and take that in-house.
So move.
No, there is no motion. But that's just let's say food for thought. See, that was funny. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So, do we have we have O2 on the agenda, by the way.
Yeah.
And so
Move to approve O2.
I have a motion from Nick,
Second.
second from Watley. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Sorry, Heather. I
So
didn't mean to make
then
you
we
get
have
up.
M1.
Kedrick's back.
Kedrick, you can,
Abbreviate?
Yeah,
yeah,
highly
just please
abbreviated.
abbreviate.
I understand. I've got my charge. Mayor and council, you have a request that city council consider reviewing and accepting revenue and expenditure report for quarter ending June 30th, 2016. The funds in the packet that you have represent about 70% of the appropriations for the 15-16 budget. The other 30% are capital projects funds, trust funds, and internal service funds. The report that you have compares actual revenues to date with revenues as of the same period last year, and actual expenditures to date to incremental budget appropriations. Budgeted revenues and expenditures for the fiscal year can also be compared to current projection amounts. I'll just highlight a few of the major funds. For the general fund, we're expecting revenues to be about $2.4 million less than budget. And as I mentioned earlier in our hearing, a large part of that is due to our sales tax revenue, and fines and penalties are down as well. So that is the majority of that. Also, general fund expenditures for the fiscal year are expected to be almost $2.5 million less than budget. And $600,000, a little over $600,000, that is related to lessening transfers to other smaller funds. And the balance of that is a lot of variation of different things. We've got frozen positions,
We've got, departments have cut back on different issues, special services and things like that. We left a lot of that discretion to the department leader. We try not to make it a top-down driven type thing because we wanted buy-in, and we early on in the process we asked departments to cut 1% off of their forecast, and we came back and asked them to do an additional 0.5%.
And
so it
they
varies
did a
in
great
different
job.
departments.
Yeah. Staff
of
did
what they-
another amazing job.
Yes, they
this year.
did.
We appreciate everyone.
Yes, we've had some really good department leaders and staff members that are excellent team players. You know, just I hate to call out one in particular one because they've all done a great job, but PD's done a great job on holding positions open and helping. Carter's back there. Carter
No, don't start on them.
You know what? I'm not going to start. They've all done a great job.
They've all done a great job. Don't pick out one because then they're all going to start standing up back there. And
Exactly.
raising their hand.
So
we appreciate each one of you very much. Carter, you get appreciation.
Yes. Also, water utilities. We're expecting revenues to be about $500,000 greater than budget, and expenditures to be about $600,000 less than budget. Solid waste, we're projecting expenditures to be almost $500,000 more than budget, revenues to be almost $500,000 more than budget, and expenditures to be about $360,000 less than budget. The additional revenues, we've seen an increase in commercial activity. Airport fund revenues are projected to be almost $300,000 less than budget. A lot of that is due to parking lot revenue. We've got one less carrier at the airport. Also, we've seen deployments are down with the construction of the new runway. We don't have as many diversions there as well, and that's impacted our revenues. Also, as I said, their expenditures are expected to be about $324,000 less than budget as well. Development services, we're projecting revenues to be almost $90,000 greater than budget, and expenditures to be about $76,000 less than budget. Hotel motel fund, we have noticed a slowdown in hotel motel tax revenue. And we're expecting revenues to be about $369,000 less than budget. So staff will continue to monitor these funds. There's other funds in your packet that we are watching closely, the health and benefit funds and some of the others that are on our radar, and we'll make adjustments as we need to make.
Kendrick, I was concerned about one of them, and you mentioned it, so I know we're working to correct it.
Yes.
Okay, so do I have, is there a motion?
Move.
Second. Motion by Nick, second by Warren, all in favor?
Aye.
Against, the ayes have it. And then we move into the consent agenda. Is there anything to remove?
Mayor, move to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Nick, second by Moore. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. City manager report.
Well, I was going to start off this morning by saying welcome back to the 18,000 plus students with Tyler ISD, but they're probably getting out of class about now. We hope that the community does take notice of the over 100 school zones that we have to keep those children safe. And so as such, that is something with our police department, with our traffic engineering department, that they monitor and do an incredible job of making sure that all those parents and all those children both get to and leave school very safely. I want to make sure that we notice that the Texas chapter of the American Public Planning Association presented its 2016 Certificate of Achievement for Planning Excellence to our planning department. This is the second consecutive year that we have received this award for our commitment to professional planning standards. The Certificate of Achievement for Planning Excellence is awarded to planning departments that demonstrate a commitment to increasing awareness of professional planning, adherence to the professional conduct and development, focus on planning efforts and aid in economic development and community image. We also officially went live with the eTrackit software for our development services department and functions on August 10th, which provides for permitting and inspections. Over 400 builders and contractors are currently registered with the city, receive notifications that they're now able to utilize the software, and it's a user-friendly access for contractors so they can monitor the status of their permits, plan reviews, and inspection requests online and from mobile devices. And just a couple of notes for the police department of just kind of the community continuing to show their appreciation for the law enforcement that is provided in our community. The Tyler Junior College football team signed a football for this year's season that they presented to the police department that we will show off or showcase at the facility at our police station. And then also Brookshire's, who part of their Fresh 15 that they do each early spring. With this race that they were able to take and use the donations, and were able to provide 186 certificates for new either pair of shoes or workout gear from Racket and Jog to each of our police officers. And so that was a very kind gift that they did for our police department to show their appreciation. And as always, we have our summary report on capital projects that are going on in the community. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Do we have I drove by the Texas College project. Do we have an ETA on when that's going to be done?
As far as when it's actually going to be completed, Carter, you want to, because I think that's probably a good.
They're doing a lot of curb work, sidewalk work, and approaches to.
That's correct. Yes, they actually emailed us yesterday because they have a homecoming coming up in October, middle or end of October. So we expressed that the project as a whole may not be done, but a lot of the work on Grand is going to be completed. As you remember, part of this project is doing improvements to the railroad crossing at Grand. So we're waiting on and working with UPR to get that done, and we want to overlay Grand.
And you'll be waiting.
Yeah. Pardon?
You'll be waiting. It's UP.
Oh, yes, so we will be. Yes. So we're pressing them to get their work done and then we'll overlay Grand once they're completed. So we may lack on the pavement final overlay, but the majority of the other work, the sidewalks and everything else, should be completed.
Great, good.
Very soon.
Mr. Mayor, I talked with the Texas College and the contractor about that, and what the contractor said they will do for the homecoming parade. Whatever work is being done or not completed, they will clean up the streets and make it, meaningful for the parade.
Yeah,
so I think that's the biggest thing that Texas College was worried about was traffic during the parade.
Right.
He assured me that they will have that kind of cleaned up and cleared out by the parade time.
Great. Good. Okay. I want to thank all the council members.
Move to adjourn.
Oh, okay. That's a motion by Watley, second by Warren. All in favor? Aye. Appreciate y'all's service today. That was a very long meeting. Thank you very much.